I'm Chinyere McKenzie from Mama Knows Best, and welcome to Stories of the Soul. Each week I'll be speaking to people who have gone through extraordinary circumstances and have come out wiser on the other end. I know that there is healing in sharing, as I have shared my own personal story, and the wisdom comes from that experience. Why not seek the answers of life's experiences and be wiser than having to go through the pain? Join me in learning from Stories of the Soul. Hi, I'm Chinyere McKenzie from Mama Knows Best, and I've got Valerie with me, and we're going to go through an absolutely amazing interview. Valerie Campbell is a relationship enhance coach, and we're going to get all the, I don't know if you say dirt, but all the answers that we need to build healthy relationships, understanding male, female, how do we do it? I'm single. So this is going to be an absolutely amazing interview. Make sure you send your questions in, and I'm going to bring Valerie on right now and get all your questions answered. Valerie, thank you so much for joining me on the Mama Knows Best Stories of the Soul. Thank you. Are you here and live?
Thank you, Chinyere. Lovely name. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. Well, thanks for gracing us with your information, your knowledge, your wisdom, because there's a lot of, my son calls me a singleton, but there's a lot of women and men, that are asking all these questions about relationships, because I think the whole thing about life is all about relationships and trying to create healthy relationships. So you're an expert, you're an author, you're also a radio host. So just tell me a bit about your journey and all these wonderful things, and then we're going to get into those questions for sure.
Well, how deep does the rabbit hole go? Where do I begin? So I'm often referred to as first of all, people were calling me the vibes lady. On my website, it says dating energy coach, but I like to see myself as an enhanced relationship coach, because I've got that spiritual side to myself. And the Bible says, love your neighbor as you would love yourself. Yeah. So that tells us, that's a big clue there. You have to love yourself first before you can actually love somebody else. You can't give what you haven't got. Yeah. So how far do I go back? Well, safe to say, let me go back to this point. Well, I've had a really abusive past, and I'm talking about in terms of my upbringing, being a West Indian, having West Indian parenting. The way we were brought up were quite different from, let's just say, the Caucasian. Yes. I just went that extra level, and I got to the point where I actually had to have counseling, because I was not only verbally, physically, I was also suffered sexual abuse with a relative. So I went through counseling, and when I went through counseling, it was a very cathartic experience for me. And I went to counseling say in my early 20s. Yeah. And I would have to say that it was there that I found that even though I was lost, I hadn't lost my value. Mm. So prior to actually having that counseling, I was attracting what I call frogs. I was kissing these frogs, hoping to find my prince. When I was a little girl, I read all the fairy tales. I was the one who was at the back of the settee that was pressed against the wall. And I've literally read every fairy tale going. Rapunzel, who would let down her long golden hair, the princess, who was, the prince in the glass slipper, the story, Cinderella. And I grew up thinking that I was Cinderella, and that when I grow up, that is how I'm going to be found. Yeah. Only to discover that life doesn't quite work that way.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And so what I did is I was, like, God, help me. Why am I attracting these kinds of guys? Mm. And the leaflet came through my door at that time, and it said, "Look, if you've ever been through any abuse, if you're if you're under 25," there were like 4 bullet points, and it said, "Call this number."
Yeah.
And so I called the number, and I ended up in counselling.
Yeah.
And that is where I said, even though I was lost, I hadn't lost my value.
Mm.
Now, at that time, it was a very shy little thing. And I said to myself, you know what, God, I need to be bold. This shyness is not going to help me.
Mm.
And I really want to learn about how to kind of relate to men in a healthy way.
Yeah.
So as God would have it, what did he do? He threw me into an environment where I was managing 120 men. So I started off as an administrator.
Yeah.
Started off as an administrator, ended up in a school, as it were,
Yeah.
of 120 men, and I'm the only female. Imagine that, Chinyere, the only female.
How did you deal with all of that around?
I know it was crazy. So when I walked in, I thought I'd landed on another planet. You've read that book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, right?
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever read that book. And at that point, just leading in from counseling, I'd read loads of personal development books. I was really on a personal development journey. Like for some people, it was maybe on a Friday night cinema ticket and, a bag of popcorn. For me, it was a seminar and a little, journaling book to take notes.
Nice.
So I decided, okay, I want to be bold. I want to learn about men. And so I attracted that type of environment. But the thing is, Chinyere, I loved working there.
Yeah.
Because not only was I their manager, I became their confidant. So when they had problems, they would come to me and ask me, being the only girl. When I had problems with my boyfriends at the time, I would go to them and I would say, look, this is happening. And they'd be like, isn't that obvious to you? And I'd be like, well, no. And they'd tell me things. I remember there was this one guy named Michael, and he used to say to me, Valerie, listen, I'm going to be banned from the round table for saying this. And so he would literally break down man code so that I understood.
Yes.
And of course, I was in this male environment. And what was also great about it is that being the only woman, I found that I could do things or get the jobs to do men to do jobs that my male counterparts couldn't get them to do. And they used to say, how is it that you get them to do these jobs? Yeah. So I'd be like, anyway, so what happened is through the conversations, I used to say to them, what is it that I always used to have a question for the day. And I said to them, what is it about these women that the ones that you're married to or your girlfriend, what is it that you love about them? And they would tell me, and they would share their stories. And so I kind of got to see a pattern. And so I called that energy that the women give off, called the vibe. At that time, I was also studying how the law of attraction works. So I called it, these women were emitting a vibration based on what they actually believed about themselves. So it wasn't really about being nice. These weren't nice women. These were women who knew what they want, and they knew how to communicate it, and they had a certain vibe. And at that time, I would tell my girlfriends who had problems, I became like an advice kind of center. They say, oh, go and ask Lady V. So that's where the Lady V comes from, vibe, not Valerie. And I would give them advice, and they would go and implement it. Anyway, Chinyere, I thought I had it sussed, And I then, at that time, I had one of my friends had said, Valerie, you need to write a book on this. We need a manual. So I was then thinking about writing the book on this. At that time, I met this guy, and I fell head over heels in love with this guy. However, I would say about almost to the 2-year mark, his attitude changed. And he basically said to me, look, I don't want this kind of relationship. Basically, he wants a friends with benefit type relationship.
Oh, wow.
And I was absolutely heartbroken. I was like, how low have I sunk that he's now trying to offer this to me? And I was in so much pain. And I remember like finding myself curled up in a ball on the bathroom floor, like stuffing a towel in my mouth because my daughter was downstairs. I didn't want her to feel my pain.
Yes.
And I was lying there, and I just heard this voice within me say, look, just get up, just get up and go and watch the movie The Secret. I'd watched it before.
Yeah.
And so when I watched The Secret, it then sort of reintroduced me about the beliefs that you have about yourself, about the power that you have within, and what I am basically, I'm attracting.
Yeah.
You see.
Yeah.
So what I then did is I wrote the book She's Got That Vibe. And then out of She's Got That Vibe, I developed a methodology out of it called the Vibe Blueprint. And Vibe stands for vision, intention, belief, and expectation, because those are the attributes that require change.
Yeah.
So now I help women to realize that they're the actual common denominator of their relationships. And so whatever that they're attracting, you have to actually look at yourself and think, well, what is it that I am wearing, in a sense, that's attracting these type of men, the men that you say that you don't like. So that's how I got into this field of work.
So would you say that in a relationship, or before you, as a woman getting into the relationship, your inner work has to be done, in the sense of if you're carrying, if you've from childhood, or any attachments that you've put onto yourself or value, you have to readjust them, or to get to a point where you attract the best of you.
Absolutely. So when I'm coaching women, for example, one of the first questions I'll ask them is, tell me what sort of men that you're attracting.
Yeah.
And some of them will say, well, Valerie, I'm attracting men that are, they're liars, or, they're dishonest, or they're emotionally unavailable. And when they actually say that to me, I know that what you're attracting is a mirror of your inner world. So I ask them, well, what beliefs do you have about yourself that you're actually attracting that?
Yeah.
You see. So for example, I had a girlfriend, and she kept on attracting guys that were emotionally unavailable. And she always felt like, oh, they're not going to stick around. These guys don't stick around, they're commitment phobic. And when I dug deep with her, what had happened was that when she was a young child, both her parents were together. She absolutely adored her dad. And then one day, from her child perspective, he just upped and left. And the way she interpreted it was that her dad had abandoned her. So imagine, she's got that belief within her, even though she's not aware of it. And she's grown up into an adult still with that belief, men are going to abandon me, because your father is actually the first role model in your life in terms of how to love a man. And so she was attracting men, because the law of attraction states you basically attract who you are. You don't attract what you want, you attract who you are. And so she was attracting men because the universe says, your wish is my command, you see. And so therefore she was attracting men who would literally abandon her. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, speaking to you, it's like, you got no choice but to reevaluate yourself while you're speaking. And I'm thinking, so what is that I'm doing? And, it's really just like even taking me on a mental journey about me. But one beautiful thing that you said is about the beginning of, to love thy neighbor, you have to love yourself. That's the thing that I have always, when I'm journaling, I'm always searching. It always comes up, how to love me, and
how to love you.
Is that a thing of it's being taught? Do you get taught how to love yourself? So, is it a behavior that you see and then you repeat? What does that look like, loving yourself?
Right. What does loving yourself look like? Well, that was one of my questions, because I didn't have that role model, as it were, from how to love myself coming up, through my childhood. And I'm a spiritual person. I'm a Christian. And so for me, it was going to the Bible to find out, well, what is my identity? My creator that made me must have known the characteristics that he wanted me to show up in life. So I looked in the Bible and thought, well, God, what's my identity? And it said that I'm a masterpiece. It said that I'm wonderfully made. You know, it's when God created me, he said to me that I'm very good.
Yeah.
So all of these are made in God's image. So every time God is telling me about who he is, he's telling me about who I am. So I lent on not my own understanding. I lent on what God was saying about me.
Yeah.
See, and that's what carried me through. So even when the Bible says to you, all things work together for good,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I'm attracting this kind of person. What lesson do I need to learn? If this is for my good, what is the lesson that I need to learn?
Yes.
You see, because it is actually an undoing process, because we're brought up in an environment where we take on beliefs and we think that that is who we are. We take on beliefs from our influences, our parents, the culture we're brought into, what our teachers say about us, what the media says about us.
Yeah.
But that's not who you are. That's who you think you are, because you're looking at your programming of yourself, you see. And if you take on these beliefs, beliefs always want to be actualized. So when women are actually putting out that belief,
yeah,
like I said, universe says, your wish is my command. It's non-judgmental.
Oh,
you know, and it's also, yeah, so it's really about the V part in the formula is really about having a true vision of who you are. You see, it's not about not being blind to who you are.
Oh wow.
And then the I part, which is really important, is how you talk to God's universe. So let me give you an example. So a woman might say, oh, I don't want a man that's a liar.
Yeah.
And what she attracts is a liar, because the universe doesn't understand the words don't, not, and no.
Yeah.
So if I said to you, Chinyere, don't think of a blue elephant with pink spots, what are you thinking of?
The elephant and the blue spot are the other way around.
Exactly. So you don't say I don't want a liar, because that's what you will attract. Because you see what it is, we all have a language. It doesn't matter your creed, your color, where you live. And that language is, guess what it is, Chinyere?
I don't know.
It's
feelings. Woo-hoo. Yeah.
Everybody has the ability to feel. So when you actually say the word liar, it makes you feel horrible. Like it's like, oh.
Yeah.
And so the universe doesn't say, oh, that's not what you want. That's not what Chinyere wants. I'm going to match that feeling. And I'm going to bring somebody who's complementary to that feeling so she can have it.
Oh, wow.
You know?
Yes.
Like one of the things that you said to me in the, I think it was the email or when we spoke earlier, you said, Valerie, it's going to be a really relaxed interview. No need to be nervous.
Oh.
The word nervous, my brain took that word and conjured up the feeling to match that word. And I thought, why am I nervous?
Yeah.
You see, that's how important language is. If you said to me, Valerie, it's going to be a lovely, calm interview,
Full stop.
I would have felt calm.
Yeah.
Because I understand how words work, I was able to quickly translate it in my mind.
Yeah.
But what if you don't know how the words work?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It stands for everything in your life. And when you said about feeling and everyone having that, that natural language, and it's feeling and everything gets
it's feeling.
It's like,
yeah.
So our end goal or our aim is to just feel good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh. I've got a radio show that I do every week. And one of the things I always say to them is, how are you feeling today? Because what the energy that you put out, that's what you're going to attract. Yeah. And the way that you switch that up, I say, is ask yourself, what do I want?
Yeah.
So it switches you from a complaining mode to a, you see the difference to what you want, from what you don't want to what you want.
Yes.
And then you're now in alignment, you see, because now you're in a good feeling because you're thinking about what you want.
Yeah.
So never complain about anything. Always give thanks.
I won't do that now.
Focus on what you want.
Yeah. So for all the women and men out there looking for love, how do they start, go forward with this information that you just presented and given?
Right. Well, the first thing they have to acknowledge is that they're the common denominator. And so a lot of women, when they come to me, they're so fed up of attracting the same kind of person. They start to see, hold on a minute, how come I keep attracting the same kind of guys? I can see a pattern here. And so the first thing is to accept that you are the common denominator of all your relationships. I am responsible for attracting this.
Yes.
And once you get to that point, then the journey begins to healing, because everything is your perspective. It's about how you see it.
Yeah.
You see, it's all about how you see it. It's about the meaning that you attach to any event. Because when you think about it, everything is neutral.
Yeah.
You see, nothing has any meaning except that which you give it. So you might have somebody who's a Mr. Right for you, or Mr. Wrong for you, but for someone else, that's a Mr. Right, because they've attached a different meaning to that person, what that person means to them.
Yes.
You see.
Oh, wow.
And so therefore they have another, another outcome. They say one man's food is another man's poison. So again, it's how you look at it. It's all about how you look at things.
Gosh, oh, you're taking me on this journey. I have a female friend, and she says I'm always attracting narcissists. And
ooh,
yeah, and then, and then in
yes.
that, I'm kind of and listening to what you're saying. Is that same trait within her, or there's something else that's happening, or
Right,
what?
let me give you an example. I have attracted a narcissist in the past. And I'm generally a really like a positive person. So remember, your mood fluctuates and you're always having to capture your positive thoughts. And I remember at this time when I attracted a narcissist, I was in a bit of a downer. Somebody had really hurt me over, a friend had hurt me. And so I just needed warmth around me at that time. And I felt wounded, you see. So what did the universe say? Oh, you feel wounded. I'm going to give you more reason to feel that way. Let me match you with somebody who's going to expand, because whatever feeling you put out is going to be expanded.
Yeah.
And I attracted a narcissist in my life. You see. And being with a narcissist, that is just, we won't go into that because we know what a narcissist is.
Yes.
But it was only as I became stronger when I realized this person was sucking me like a vampire, taking, and I was overcompensating. I began to as I healed, even though this was going on, I still had the wherewithal, the means to work on myself. So as I began to recognize what was going on, the conflict in the relationship became more, because you can't have two vibrations the same in the room, you see. Sorry, not the same in the room. And so eventually he had to, by law of attraction, leave the relationship. And so we became separate. So there's something within herself that she needs to look at. And what Stein said, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So that's why you really need a host that can help you with that. So I think I've lost, but I'll continue speaking just in case you can still hear me. So then the B in the formula is beliefs. And your beliefs, as I mentioned earlier, they need to be actualized. And so if you're believing within yourself that you've got really a low opinion of yourself, you've got low self-worth, then that's what you're going to attract. You're going to attract men who mirror your self-worth. So I teach a lot of women that they have to be queens. Okay, they have to learn to be a queen. And I actually had, again, there was a time where I reached out to God when I wrote my book, She's Got That Vibe. I said to God, look, how do I differentiate myself, or how do I stand out from different women out there? God at that time had given me a vision many years ago, and he said to me that there's no such thing as Mr. Right, and there's no such thing as Mr. Wrong. There's only your perspective. And so what I did is I went out and told people that there's no such thing as Mr. Right and no Mr. Wrong. And so therefore that helped them to then understand that there's no such, there's nothing out there that's actually doing it to you, but there's your perspective that's actually affecting the world that you actually attract. So Chinyere, are you still there? I can't see.
Is that better? Feedback?
I think she's coming back online. Yes, Mr. Perfect. Oh, Mr. Perfect Match, because you can never attract more than how you feel about yourself. I know you went offline for a little while, but I wasn't.
Can you actually hear me right now?
Not sure if you could still hear me. A cut there at that point in time.
I can. Am I able to hear you now?
Oh, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
I'm back. Sorry
I can hear you.
that.
I can hear you. Yes. I was just wondering because it cut for a period of time, and I wasn't sure if you could actually hear me.
I did. I hear
you. Could hear me.
Yes,
okay.
I am. So it's beautiful.
So I just continued.
No, perfect. Professional is definitely so. Thank you. And even so, I was telling about my journey. I've shared it with everybody, and it's 7 years since I've had a relationship. And in terms of you said about and kind of digging, are you all right? Could you still hear? Is it still coming through?
Can you say it again? Because you cut out in bits.
Okay.
Yeah, just say it again. You did cut out.
No, I was saying that what's beautiful speaking to you is showing the importance of actually dealing with self and actually, emptying the vessels and the trauma and healing, all those things.
Yes.
You need to get taken in order for you to bring in the right person or because as you said, like there's always a lesson in everything. So maybe these lessons.
There's absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I tell you that there's a great analogy. I heard a lady, her name is named Spirit, and she gave a great analogy to how the law of attraction works. Because one of the subjects that I teach is the law of sexual polarity, which I'll explain in a minute. But what she said is, so for example, imagine you're put on a red dress. Okay. So the same way you put on a dress is the same way that you put on your feelings. Yeah. So you've gone out there. The people that are going to be attracted to a red dress are going to come to you. And the ones who are not attracted to a red dress are not going to come to you. It's the same way with your feelings. I'll bring in the law of sexual polarity at this point. If you're wearing feminine energy and you go out there, then a masculine guy is going to be attracted to your feminine energy. And an effeminate man will not be attracted to your feminine energy. So let me just backtrack a little bit to explain how the law of sexual polarity works. So law of attraction states that like attracts like. Yeah. So the law of sexual polarity explains how like attracts like in the terms or in the realm of masculine and feminine energy. So if you imagine masculine energy is described as it's solution orientated, it's mental challenges, loves mental challenges, it's about getting things done. Okay. Whereas feminine energy is soft, it's receiving. Masculine energy, by the way, is giving. So feminine energy is about receiving, it's nurturing, it's soft, it's deep, it's mysterious, you see. And we both have, as individuals, we have masculine and feminine energy within us. It's not gender specific. So even when you look at relationships of the same sex, you'll always find that one's more masculine than the other. Yes. And you might have heard of relationships where there's a woman, for example, she's really great. She's a sassy businesswoman. She's great in the boardroom, because she has to wear her masculine energy. She's got targets to meet, deadlines. She's got to get things done. But then when it comes to her romantic life, it doesn't work because she's actually carrying the same boardroom energy into the bedroom. And you can't have two masculine energies coming together because they're going to clash. And the same principle, if you look at, you remember doing physics at school, and you'd have your two magnets, you'd have your positive pole and your positive pole. And if you push them together, they're not going to go because they're the same. But if you flip it the other way, positive and negative, they come together. So when you liken it to relationships, that's what happens. You've got two masculine energies trying to come together and it doesn't work. So a lot of the coaching is teaching women how to sit in their feminine energy, especially the ones who say, where's all the masculine men gone? Where are they? And they don't realize you're the common denominator. You need to change you in order to attract, the opposite energy. So if you go out and you're wearing masculine energy, what sort of man is going to be attracted to you? Think about it. An effeminate man. An effeminate man is going to be attracted to your masculine energy, even though you're saying that you want a masculine man. So what I say is, don't be afraid to be yourself. That's why the first step is vision. In the formula is having a correct vision of yourself. There's no right or wrong here. If you want a masculine man, you're telling me essentially that how you're showing up, you're not happy with how you're showing up. So just be yourself, come to you, you see, and you'll be happy about it, you see, because you're actually in your skin. And what's not for you will go away from you. So it has a polarizing effect.
Yes. Oh, wow. And so inspired. I've got so much questions, so much things. And just even one question as well is that you do teach this as well. So you've got some you've got some things that if people want to get in contact with you, they can. I know we've got a link below if anyone, get in contact with Valerie and find out about the courses that you do. So you've definitely got a few stuff coming out, and you've got a book coming out soon as well.
Yes, I've got my third book coming out. So the first one is actually called She's Got That Vibe. That's the one I spoke about earlier, the manual for ladies. And that teaches about dating and relationships from the law of attraction perspective. And that's available on Amazon, but it's also available on my website. So you can go to valeriecampbell.com to get that. And then there's a second book that I co-authored with 15 different authors called The Blind Spot. So in that, there's a chapter called Eve's Story, and I basically tell you about my upbringing and about the beliefs that I adopted that then attracted my world at that time. And my new book is called Perspective, and Perspective due out in September. And just before you cut out, many years ago, I had this a really, I have to say it was an epiphany. I had attended a seminar, and when I was at the seminar, just prior to, let me just backtrack a bit. That sometimes when you kind of like go into space, and if you've got a pen in your hand, you kind of doodle. And you just kind of look at the words to know the difference between right and wrong. And I used to look at the words and I used to think, why have I written these words? It doesn't seem to make any sense to me. And those words followed me. Every time I'd go into space, there were the words. Anyway, one day I went to this seminar, and the host had put us in this really kind of like meditational space. We were really quiet. And I remember on day 2 of the seminar, I went to the front of the room. And as I sat down, you imagine the room is seminar style. So you've got chairs to the left, to the right, aisle down the middle. I'm sat at the front on the right-hand side. And Chinyere, I heard the words as clear as I'm hearing my own voice now. It said, "There is no difference." And I realized that there is no difference was answer to what I doodled all those years. And I said, oh. And I immediately began to cry and wrong. And the part of my brain kicked and said, "What do you mean there's no difference between right and wrong? Everyone knows there's a difference between right and wrong." So that was the first time that I actually first heard the words clear as day. And then that would form the filter for how I actually looked at things. And I call it spirit, the Holy Spirit, because I really developed a very close relationship. And one day I was in my room sitting down, and outside there's a tree. And Spirit said to me, "You see that bench below? There's a bench below. If you were looking up at that tree, you would be adamant that tree." And then Spirit said, "But if you're in the aeroplane that's flying above, looking down at that tree, you would be adamant that tree is below you." And I said, "Well, yes, of course." So the Spirit said, "Well, which version of you is right?" And I said, "Well, both versions are right, and well, it's wrong at the same time, both right and wrong at the same time." Yeah. And my Spirit said, "Well, the only difference is your perspective, your viewpoint, you see." And that's when that was one of the teachings that I got. So when I said that, I sat on my bed one day and I said to God, "How do I distinguish myself from other coaches out there?" And Spirit said, "I told you there's no difference between right and wrong." And I was like, "What does this mean?" And then the penny dropped. There's no difference between Mr. Right and Mr. Wrong. There's only your perspective. So that would then start me on the journey, you see, of unfolding even more this entire process, you see. So perspective really, the book Perspective really takes the reader back to that point, and my journey, the lessons basically that I got, that Spirit taught me, and the unfolding of that. It's actually, I say that the book wrote me. I didn't write the book, but it's a phenomenal book. It really is.
Oh,
it really is.
That was just like a moment just then about the perspective. And
yes,
that was in your life. So it puts you in a good sense of understanding everything with no judgment.
Yes. Yeah. And it's very powerful, because once you know that, you understand that everything is from your perspective, it stops you having a victim mentality, because it makes you think, well, I attracted that. Yeah. What is it in me? So you then look within to find out why you've attracted that thing. So you're taking responsibility for your life and how you actually show up. So it's important, not just for relationships, about any type of relationship. Hence the term enhanced relationship coach. It's about enhancing the relationship that you have with yourself.
Oh, Valerie. Oh my gosh. Valerie, so much. I'm actually really, there's loads of pennies being dropped. There's loads of things that I'm thinking, okay, this is how I want to go forward. And I'm definitely going on your course. And definitely a link below to anybody who's interested in contacting Valerie and going on the course and actually divulging, getting to a point where, the person of your experience within the time that you need it will show up. Because Mr. Right or Mr. Wrong, but clearly, as you said, that's not where we're standing. It's about the perspective and where you are, and everything's a lesson. Oh wow!
Everything is a lesson. It's to undo you from who you think you are to who you are. Because I believe, and the Bible tells us that when God created us, he created us equipped with everything that we needed, that he knew us before we were formed in our mother's womb. So I believe that God also created your partner at that time as well. So when you find yourself, when you find your function and why you're in this world, that's when that person will actually show up for you, because you're ready for that person now.
And then I know, but one more, because I know we're doing for time, but talk about women standing in their masculine energy, and it actually,
yes,
you know, the masculine energy, you know, to their mate. Why are we as women? Why are we kind of taking on more of that persona of the masculine kind of energies in this space and time? Because we have, because now, even at my age, like, I want to be more fluid, I want to be, you know, I want to stand in my feminine energy, and I have to actually learn what that is, you know?
yes, I know, because society has changed. You know, when we look back in the day, you're probably too young to remember that, Chinyere, the black and white movies. But in that age, women didn't really work. Women didn't work. It was the men that worked. They were the ones who brought in the bread and butter, and the women were the homemakers, so to speak. But society has changed. Women go out and work, so they have to make the decisions. They have to listen. You see, so there's a lot of things that are, you know, that have actually brought this about, and so we're having to, for especially for those women who want a masculine man, we're having to unlearn a lot of stuff in order to get back into our feminine energy, because it doesn't come naturally. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Valerie, thank you so much for joining me on the Woman Knows Best Stories of the Soul. Wow, I was really enlightened really on this journey. And one thing that you beautifully kind of made me acknowledge even more so is that all relationships start with the self, and emptying that cup of trauma, or, you know, keep going on that healing journey, and making sure that, you know, that vessel is well, you know, looked after,
Yeah.
cared for, and attracts exactly what it is, being really aware of what it is that we're attracting out there. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for continuing on your journey. And I'm definitely, as I said, definitely got a link below. Anyone wants to get in contact with Valerie and to go on the courses that she has, to actually, you know, divulge and go through this whole process, and, you know, all these beautiful things. So definitely, Valerie, thank you so much for joining us. It's been the most best show, and I'll definitely be in contact and see you. And good luck with the radio station and with everything. Yes.
You were breaking up there. I got bits and pieces of what you were saying, but I know it was all good. It was all
Thank
good.
you.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. I love teaching this. Thank you so much for having me. Bless you.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Wow. Absolutely. Wow, absolutely amazing just being there with Valerie as well. Really, really, really inspiring. And even to the biggest, I would say, Eureka moment was just basically like, wow, you know, we are a vessel that attracts what we want, and whatever was happening, you know, it is an attraction of self, and, you know, and as a mirror of what is going on inside. So healing is massive, you know. You know, understanding self is massive, and definitely that was definitely a Eureka moment where Valerie said as well is about perspectives. perspectives. There's no right or wrong. It's all a journey. And as you know, it's all a journey of self-discovery. Thank you so much for joining me on the Mama Knows Best show. I've got an elbow in the screen that's going. So thank you so much for everything. And definitely join us on the Mama Knows Best show for next week. Valerie, oh my gosh, I love this. I love this learning. So I'm definitely going to be going on Valerie's course. So make sure you click the link and find out what's going on. And as this world goes, you have to like, subscribe, and share. So definitely, and stay in contact with Mama Knows Best community. This is a journey of self-discovery. And you just heard Valerie's story of the soul. Absolutely inspired. Every week I'm inspired. So definitely no wrong or right. It's about what are you attracting. So thank you so much for joining Mama Knows Best. Make sure you definitely go on to our Mama Knows Best as well. Sign up to our newsletter and come on the journey with us, where you'll be, you'll see each week, you'll get stories and, just be a part of the community. And as I've shared my story, I understand that there's healing in sharing. So continue to share your stories and absolutely just keep going on this life of journey of self-discovery. So thank you so much for joining me on the Mama Knows Best show. And Valerie, thank you so much for everything and all those information and those beautiful enlightening moments, the Eureka moments. So yes, definitely, thank you. Join me next week for Stories of the Soul.